Oh, where are you going? Said reader to rider. That valley is fatal where furnaces burn. Yonder's the maiden whose odors will madden. That gap is the grave where the toll return. Oh, do you imagine? Said fearer to fairer, the dust will delay on your path to the pass. Your diligent looking discover the lacking. Your footsteps feel from granite to grass. Oh, what was that bird? Said horror to hearer. Did you see that shape in the twisted trees? Behind you, swiftly, the figure comes softly. The spot on your skin is a shocking disease. Out of this house, said rider to reader, yours never will, said fairer to fearer, they're looking for you, said hearer to horror, as he left them there, as he left them there. In this poem, the poet has skillfully created a scene and dialogue between two imaginary persons. One is reader and the other is rider. The poet has used various situations where these two imaginary characters talk to each other. One is the symbol of hope and courage, who is the rider, and the other represents frustration and negativity, that is the reader, who only reads books and is inactive in the society. His knowledge is only bookish knowledge. He does not have any practical knowledge, any practical information. Though this poem, the poet tells us that the way to success is not clear and easy. We need courage and determination to cover the distance. And the other is evil. The poem tells us a story of two persons. One is afraid while the other is courageous. By the end, poet tells us that the way to success or the path to success may be uncertain. It can be difficult, it can be dangerous, but it is not impossible to achieve. It can be paved through courage and perseverance. Now let's start the first stanza. Oh, where are you going? Said reader to rider. That valley is fatal where furnaces burn. Yonder's the maiden whose odors will madden. That gap is the grave where the toll return. So the poet talks about here about reader who is stopping the rider through a dialogue. The two imaginary persons are confronted by each other. The reader asks the rider where he is going. He tells him not to go there. He says that valley is very dangerous. The furnaces burn there. There are heaps of dung and rubbish which give poisonous odor. That bad smell will madden him and he will lose his senses. The reader tries to stop the rider by all means. He tells him that the gap in the ground is a grave where he will be buried forever. And the most courageous and the most powerful people return from that side. They cannot cover that grave. They cannot cover that gap. So they come back. Tall return. In the second stanza, the poet says that the fearer tries to stop the fairer by hinting the dusk that may delay his journey towards the destination. According to the fairer appears to be diligent and a careful and courageous person. But when he passes through grassy and stony fields, he will discover that he lacks courage and strength to move forward. The poet wants to describe the reality of life. One has to face trials and tribulations to achieve one's goals. Oh, what was that bird? Said horror to hearer. Did you see that shape in the twisted trees? Behind you, swiftly, the figure comes softly. The spot on your skin is a shocking disease. In this stanza, the poet has again used two imaginary characters, the horror and the hearer. The horror represents the pessimist people we come across in our everyday life, while hearer represents a courageous and determined person who is ready to challenge the difficulties of life. The horror tries to scare the hearer by telling him about various suspicious things like bird, a shape in the twisted trees, a strange figure following him rapidly, and the spot on his skin. He tries his best to distract the hearer by telling about inauspicious things. tries to frighten the hearer from a strange bird that is hidden in the thick and twisted trees, that is in fact the creation of his own mind and does not really exist. The rider tells him that ghostly bird will slowly seize him and kill him without his knowing. He further makes him afraid of a spot present on his skin that may be the sign of some shocking disease from which the hearer is going to suffer. It is truly sad. Life is not a bed of roses. Out of this house, said rider to reader, yours never will, said farer to fearer, they are looking for you, said hearer to horror, as he left them there, as he left them there. This is the last stanza of the poem. The poet has described symbolic characters talking to each other in this poem. Now, in this last stanza, the poet has expressed the reaction of all three imaginary persons, the rider, farer, and the hearer, who is responding towards reader, fearer, and horror. Before we noticed that who was active in the poem, who was speaking in the poem, that was reader, fearer, and horror, and the rider, fearer, and the hearer was quiet. Now in the last stanza, the quiet person has come to speak. What he says, the rider said that he is going out of this house. The fearer said to the fearer that his footsteps can never be moved if he does not try. The hearer said to the horror that all those inauspicious things were looking for him. So he left them there and he moved on to achieve his destination. The rider replies to the reader. He says to him that he is not afraid of all that the reader mentioned to him. He will continue his journey without any fear. All the hurdles, troubles, ghosts, mysterious bird, and shocking disease are waiting for the reader, in fact. To him, the people like reader cannot achieve anything because they are frightening to do anything. They remain unsuccessful in all their lives. Saying this, he left the reader alone at his place and set for his journey again.